Hey there, everybody. This is Chad, and welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Communication. Hope you get your coffee. This is a little bit of a late episode. It's about almost 9 o'clock here in the Chicago area. Lots going on, and here to record this episode to share it with you and get it out there to all of you followers and people looking for some useful communication information, hopefully. So, in this episode, we're going to kick this off with kind of building on a another lesson that we talked about previously, and this is specifically to go with the concept that communication's always on. No matter how much we might want to do it, it's always there. We don't really get a chance to say no to it, and we really have to keep that level of awareness that that's the world that we live in. And it impacts everything from how you bring value to the reputation of yourself and even of others. How do you bring something to the table so it's good, but also how do you minimize the risk? And sometimes, it's important to remember that, we're human. There's going to be times that we're going to probably lose composure, that we're going to say or maybe do something that we don't want to do. And one of the things I always keep in mind is how do we keep that within the context of what we're doing, that it doesn't kind of blossom and get out of control. Also, unfortunately, a lot of situations when we do this, it gives other people who might not be our fans, fuel to use against us. This actually just happened today here in the Chicago area at a training camp with the Chicago Bulls. As you can see here, got the video up. And this is the practice. And Caleb Williams is the quarterback. He's number 18. You can't really see him here. And he's going to be throwing balls into this net. So let's go ahead and go back to here. And so he's throwing the balls, practice, and he misses. And when he does, he just kind of like, he loses composure. He loses control. This is a replay of it. Throws it, hits the net, and then misses it. And there's this kind of like borderline has a tantrum. And this is one of the issues that when you're in the public eye, in that everything that you do is under a microscope. Now, most of us aren't NFL quarterbacks. We're not super famous people or something like that. But we are out, where there could be cameras, where, cell phones are everywhere. Something happens, you get into a dispute, a disagreement. You never know where that might end up. So these are things that really keep in mind that, composure counts, not only in a situation like this, but, every day when we encounter something, when we're working with people, how we manage that interaction, how we manage that communication. And that's actually one of the big reasons why I advise people and train people how to use their journals and their pens. Because when people get into positions where the communication is overtaking the situation, the composure is breaking down, one of the best things that we can do is just kind of slow everything down. And this is where a journal can come in, because you can, take notes. And sometimes maybe you're not taking notes directly related to what's going on, but it gives you a chance to slow down the situation. And also, for the situations where we don't have a journal or something handy, it's downshifting of taking that step back or like, hang on a second, let's look at what's just happened here. Do something that kind of slows the pace down. If you do have the journal and pen, there's something about having a pen and on paper versus tapping on your phone. That's just nowhere near as effective for slowing down. Even if you don't completely get control of the situation, it's a pathway to minimizing damage, which is really what can be super helpful in this kind of situation. Now, obviously, the video we just watched with Caleb Williams, he's frustrated and kind of had a hard season last year, being his rookie season. New season, a lot of pressure on him, and he's just kind of missing some simple throws. Don't know what's behind that. He's learning a new system with a new coach. But we don't want to have that breakdown. We don't want it to be something that someone could use against us. Maybe it's a competitor or a rival, whether someone trying to get the same promotion as yourself, trying to win a contract from the same client, all those kind of different factors. be cool, be calm as much as you possibly can so that you have the upper hand, or at least you haven't ceded it to somebody else. And these are really important things to keep in mind. Now, another factor though, when we're talking about communication never turning off, the internet's always on. We know that. But now we have chatbots where people can go onto websites and type in questions, and maybe they get something useful back in the response. Maybe they don't. One of the things to keep in mind is, like, as this technology is maturing, is they're pretty limited on what they do. If they can't answer a specific set of questions, which gets into the whole, this isn't really AI yet, at least what most of us are using in a commercial sense, in a retail sense. It has to fulfill very specific checkboxes on if something is AI or not. And a lot of times it's not, it's just kind of a glorified program. But we have these that are always accessible now. So this is another thing that we have to keep in mind as far as, business leaders, decision makers, is in what way are we ready to leverage this technology? Is the information it's going to give accurate, or it punches through the check down list and then says, oh, well, I've got to bring in someone, or I've got to refer you to a human, and then it kind of hits the flow. Usually, it kind of stops it, so you're waiting to get in contact with the person. That could be the next day or even longer in some situations. um, but it's something to keep in mind that it's just another factor where communication is open all the time. And another factor of that too is, in addition to what we're seeing and interacting and engaging with, it's also what we're taking in. We're always getting hit by data here online, with television shows, with streaming. There's more options than there have been probably ever before. Books, all the traditional media, and then throw in all the new digital media, and it's always coming in at us. And sometimes it's quality overriding, or sorry, the quantity overriding the quality. And you're just kind of wading through a morass of low quality communication. And this is where one of the situations, it's really, sometimes the best alternative is, how do we restrict that diet of information that's coming in on us, that flow, the data, that do we really need all of it all the time, and what can we do to manage that a little bit better? Because the communication is going to stay on, websites are going to stay on, cell phones on. That's something that you can manage somewhat when you're retiring for the evening, for example. So it's, always keep in mind that the communication's always happening. It's always going on. And there are people that would use it to try and play a gotcha game. And it's, how do you minimize the risk, but also how do you maximize the benefits of how you interact with people, whether they be your customers, your employers, peers, whoever it might be. Now, with that being said, there's two terms I want you to think about and really strongly consider eradicating from your vocabulary, from your personal use, your individual use, to that of your business, your employees, your peers, and beyond, as much as you can influence this. Because they're both words that don't really add value. The first one is superpowers. Superpowers don't exist. And it is amazing how often I see people using this term, like, oh, what's your superpower? Or if you do this, it'll be your superpower. It's cheap. I think it's borderline abusive, and it's also manipulative, because no one has a superpower. It just does not exist. And there's this push, whether it came out of the run of successful Marvel movies, for example, that became very popular, that people had superpowers. No, you get better at something by working at it, by practicing, by studying. And that's really where you get this division between good and bad. And then once you cross into that threshold of good, you can become great and even excellent at something, or things can go the other way. And if you're not good or better, you're bad at it. And this includes normal and average. If you're normal or average at something, you're bad at it. You're not good. You're just tolerable at what you're doing. You're tolerably bad at what you're doing. Um, and for sure, there aren't superpowers. Now, the people have different predilections of being better at some stuff than other ones. Maybe it's something physical, maybe it's something mental, intellectual. Some people are faster, some people shoot basketballs better, some people throw baseballs harder or faster or more accurately. Some people can do math better. Some people have stronger memories. There's all these different things that do give us different advantages, but they're explainable through inheritance, science, DNA, whatever, usually to some extent. They're not superpowers, though. No one's popping out a red cape and jumping off a building and flying away, or anything like that. Now, is this to say that there are not people who might have supernatural, you know, tendencies or something? Hey, you know what? It's possible. There's probably a very small part of the population that this is the case. On a regular basis, every day at work, people don't have superpowers. Stop using it. It's abusive, it's manipulative, and it kind of gives people false hope. Instead, encourage people to get good by putting in the time and the effort and stop falling into this pandering of shortcuts by telling people they have superpowers at something. Knock it off. Don't do that. Now the second one is really where this term has become, there's an extra layer of unnecessary complication, energy, effort, and this is active listening. Now, this isn't to say that listening is not bad. It's not. Listening's crucial. It's a absolutely necessary skill. The problem with the term active listening, though, is it's unnecessary, and it's unnecessarily describing a trait that someone has. Because listening is a binary activity. You're listening or you're not listening. And I know some people will say, well, what if you're kind of paying attention, sort of, but you don't remember it all, or you're not paying full attention? Let's say you have a 20-minute coffee meeting with somebody. And the first 10 minutes, you're engaged in it, you're thinking, you're taking notes, you're talking to the person. And then after that, you're kind of like, what do I want to have for dinner tonight? Or you start thinking about your next meeting, something like that. Well, at that point, you stopped at listening. So the way to think about this is, for that time period that you're committed to interacting with someone, where listening is a critical part of it, are you listening that entire time period? If so, then yes, you're listening. If you drop off at some point, you failed. You are no longer listening. You're no longer engaged, and it's a fail. You don't get half credit for listening, because you never know what part of information that you're going to miss, and something's going to fall through the cracks. So there's no halfway on listening. You listen or you don't listen. Active listening is really an unnecessary term. Stop using it. It's a buzzword. Someone came up with it. Sell some books, magazines, give some speeches, whatever it is. It's another term that is unnecessary. And when we're looking at being effective professionals in communication and everything else, a really big part of being effective and being successful is taking all the unnecessary crap and getting rid of it and focusing on what your core skill is, what you need to do to be effective, without layering on the window dressing. And that's what active listening is as a term. It's window dressing. You're either listening or you're not listening. You're not inactively listening. If you're inactively listening, you're not listening. You're doing a disservice to the time you're spending and the person that you're supposed to be listening to. So that's another term. Deep six it, get rid of it. That superpowers. You'll become more efficient. You'll become more streamlined in your thinking and your operations when you use terms and activities that matter and contribute to what you want to achieve. And it's not superpowers, and it's not active listening. If we look at it, the way that work and even society is evolving right now is, the letting people slide, and not be good at stuff. That age is kind of sliding away. It's filtering, fading into the background. We're really entering into more of a FAFO type environment. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's F around and find out. So basically, what this typically originates from is you're told something, do this, but when you don't, or you behave in a way or do something in terms that is against what you're supposed to be doing, and it's been set out, those expectations have been set, but people decide that they can slide by, they're special, they can do it their way because that's the way they think it should be done, which has been tolerated a lot in the workplace. And it's really been revealed for a lot of unnecessary work and unnecessary people. This was really kind of all kicked off by the Musk effect when we went in there and zapped like 70, 80% of Twitter, where they weren't really applying and working towards achieving stuff. And you've seen this ripple throughout, especially the tech industry. They don't call it that, but that's what's happening is everybody's looking back and saying, do we need all these people? What the hell do these people do? You're doing yoga and having a smoothie all day. That's not work. That's not that's not contributing to the desired outcome. But then you still get people that are like, I'm going to do it my way. And then they F around and they find out, and there's consequences typically follow from that. So these are things to keep in mind. And it's even, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about how this is now being practiced in parenting. You know, it's kind of the way a lot of us are probably raised. It's like, don't do this. If you do this, something's going to happen you're not going to be happy about. We do it, and then we get punished. We find out what the consequences are. And this is making kind of a comeback in parenting, at least according to this Wall Street Journal article, where it's not like, oh, we're going to, kind of be soft on everybody and say, no, this is it. Do this or there's consequences. So something to be cognizant of, and also might help you keep your rear out of a sling, so to speak. So a couple of programming notes for the week. The latest Communication in the Movies is out. Did that on Jurassic Park, Rebirth. And watch the review. I go through, I do an analysis of it from communications, leadership, strategy, in addition to just the movie in general. So that is out on the YouTube station right now on www.chatonyoutube.com, or also my YouTube handle is the Chad Eaves. So you can find it there. And let me put this up here so you can have that information to where you can look for it. So that episode is out now. There'll be another one coming up soon and shortly. See what next virtual book club will be on Thursday. That'll be chapter 4 on auto suggestion. So that's going to be continuing the theme from taking an idea and making it into reality, and how do we reinforce that with ourselves so we can work on it more effectively. Next week, the 14th, is going to be a Q&A session for the virtual book club. So if you have questions, you can post it onto the live event that'll be on the YouTube channel tomorrow, or join us if you've got the opportunity to sign in and participate in it. Do so. It'd be awesome to have you participate with us. And also Friday, we will be debuting a new show, so keep an eye out for that. With that, hope you've enjoyed your coffee. You've got your serving of communication, and we'll be back with episode 44 next week of Coffee and Communication.